roughed up and stuff. The boys.
Yeah, we are live, by the way.
Alrighty.
Gotta play the key. Well, that countdown has been behaving strangely lately.
Yeah.
Here we are, folks. Good evening. This
Hello.
is Empowering Democracy. And our topic for tonight is changes following a likely Russian victory in Ukraine. And this is part 6, of our series. And also Brandy and Dee, co-hosts of Around the World with Brandy and Dee, are with me tonight. And Matt Waldie says he will be joining soon, but will be a little late.
Happy to be here.
And I'm certainly very happy that you are here, Dee, and I'm very happy you're here too, Brandy. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay, so I was listening to a Garland Nixon show earlier this week,
hmm
and he was really rapping pretty good, but he was rapping about what happens if all these countries come together and insist that we buy oil, by we, I mean American companies, American buyers, buy oil in their currency, just the way we insist, we America insist, that people buy our products and services in dollars.
hmm
I mean, we do that too. So the issue he was raising, here's Matt now. Hello, Matt.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm a little late. I apologize.
That's all
you're
right.
good.
You only missed a couple of minutes or so. I kind of started off tonight with a reference to Garland Nixon,
Mm-hmm.
who had a show this week, and he was asking everybody to imagine what is going to happen if the BRICS nations go through with their plans and they develop their own currency, and they insist that people not within BRICS but within the rest of the world, if and when we want to buy oil or other things from the members of BRICS, if they insist that we pay for their products using the new BRICS currency. And he gave a big rant, basically implying, and hello, Greg, how are you?
If I were any better, I'd be twins. I was about to say knock, knock.
That's all right.
We got a full house.
We're happy to have
Damn sure do.
Gregory Mallard here. Okay, so anyway, I was raising the question, or Garland Nixon was raising the question for us to discuss. What happens if the BRICS nations come together with a new currency as they are planning to do, and they make everybody pay for their products in their currency, just as we in the United States make people in other nations pay for our products in our currency, in dollars.
Well, I would be thinking it would be more like a foreign direct investment type deal where, we buy products in their country. And this is what Fadl Kaboub explained to me a while back. And this is what he taught me. The products that we buy in their country, it would pretty much fit at their reserve banking system like their products, like, and all that. Like, we would still be probably using their currency, but it would sit at their reserve banking system for like their corporations that buy and sell products here in the US use the US dollar, or they're still going to use the US dollar because the currencies are not compatible with each other. You cannot use dollars or another currency inside the US, and you cannot use the dollar in Russia or China. So from an MMT standpoint, this is what I've been reading as well as when I looked into some of the stuff that L. Randall Ray and others have put out on foreign direct investment. So that's the standpoint that people are going to have to look at it from, and look at it through the lens of foreign direct investment, which is a component of MMT in of itself.
So if I may infer something from your statement, you think this is not a problem. This is just normal.
I'd say yes.
I mean, it may not have been normal until now because other people were not.
Well, after hearing L. Randall Ray's statements on this, I don't think it would be such a big deal after hearing his statements on the matter.
So I personally think that that there'll be some of the BRICS nations will want to do this because they already have a system set up for that. This is a very capitalist type of response to a monetary system. However, I do believe that China would be in control of this situation, and it would automatically should throw off sovereignty issues, right? That this would not be in a country's sovereign interest. So that's the number one thing that China says that they're about. So I'm going to assume that this would automatically stop them from creating that type of monetary system, because it does mess with sovereignty. But if they did, the United States' energy can be energy independent. It does not need to go out and buy and import their own. The problem is that we would have to ramp up our production capacity in order to handle what would be an automatic trade reduction for whatever we decided we didn't want to put into this fund, or if we didn't want to act or participate in the BRICS system.
But let's follow the point that Greg was making. He was saying that from the MMT standpoint, as stated by Randy, okay, this would not be a big deal.
But you're right; it shouldn't be. No, Greg was totally right. I was just speaking upon the notion of China allowing this would cross a boundary, or an express boundary that they've already put up.
And we've got to respect that boundary as well. If we're going to have peace and such in the world, that's going to have to be a determining factor there if we're going to keep peace, and that's going to have to be respected upon those lines as well.
So have you an opinion on this, Brandy or Dee?
I really don't. Sorry, my mic is trying to come off. Because I'm not as familiar as to like what the MMT effects would be on each individual country. You guys know more about the MMT than I do.
How about you, Dee? Do you have a comment on it?
Not really. I'm just watching and observing, and it's interesting today. I had seen something with China and Saudi Arabia, where oil is concerned. The U.S. is not going to be involved with that, getting oil from them. But there's always ways around things, and especially we're monetary sovereign. So that's where I think we have that power with the monetary sovereignty if it's used properly.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I wasn't really addressing this question so much from the MMT point of view.
Oh, okay.
But what I shouldn't say that from the MMT point of view. I meant actually from the American point of view. I was trying to bring this question from the point of view of, let's say we had an MMT world. And in the MMT world, every country was a monetary sovereign, not just ourselves, but all the other countries were monetary sovereigns too. If they were monetary sovereigns, then they would insist that when people buy their products, they pay in the currency of their nation. We'd all be insisting on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because that's one of the conditions for maintaining monetary sovereignty.
And back to the oil thing, what we could do to offset that, and this is, coming from the rural standpoint, we could have Congress, we can have fighters in Congress who are for the full scale growth of hemp. Then what we could do is we can offset all of that with hemp fuel and just start using hemp fuel for our energy needs instead of needing fossil fuels. Like, we could take over the next 5 years and move away from the fossil fuels, move toward hemp fuels, which, in my view, and me being from the backwoods of South Georgia, it would help communities like mine more than you imagine. Like, we could take and put a hemp oil extraction mill up in my industrial site, which has absolutely almost nothing there. That would bring about jobs in my local community. And then we could take like 1 or 2 towns over, put a fuel refinery point there where they refine the hemp oil into all the fuels that we would need to run the country.
And just growing hemp and thinking of growing hemp, the production and all the, we had another big plastics factory on fire today in Indiana.
Oh my God.
And think about it this way: if those same plastics that you're talking about were made from hemp, and those were to catch on fire, it would have very, very, very minimal impact on the environment.
Yeah, you don't have all the chemicals and fumes. And they were
like what happened in East Palestine. If those trains were carrying hemp products, it would not be such a big deal with the cleanup. You wouldn't have to clean up contaminated soil.
Yeah, and did you see where that truck dumped over that had the contaminated soil in it?
can you imagine? And that would all. Let's say a train. Let's say that train derailed. The train in East Palestine. Let's say it had hemp oil on board in
And other
every one
hemp
of those.
products.
If it had that hemp oil in those tanker cars, there would be no need to do any ground contamination cleanup or abatement because hemp is natural. I mean, it would even save the railroad industry and the hemp oil industry a lot of money in the long run. It would not there would be no health issues pop up, which is fixing to happen because of that fossil fuel product that was on board. So if we move toward hemp oil instead of fossil fuel oil to satisfy our energy production needs, then we could literally be self-sustainable. And whatever excess of hemp fuel we have, like the surplus of hemp fuel that's here in the US, we could be selling it to any country around the world. Like Canada, they can also be growing hemp as well. So hemp is really the future, and that's what we need to be moving toward is hemp.
Okay, I'm certainly very, very favorable to hemp.
Yeah.
But going back to the issue, if every country in the world can be a monetary sovereign, and every other country forces every other country in the world to buy its product through use of its sovereign currency, okay, and MMT theorists say, as they do, that this is really perfectly all right. You know, this is no problem because they can always buy the foreign currencies to trade with. It's a question of the price of the foreign currencies, but if all the foreign currencies are floating as they're supposed to float in an ideal MMT situation, then what's the problem? Because you can always buy the foreign currency you need to trade with your own currency.
Mm-hmm.
That too.
Why is this a problem? Why did Garland Nixon think it was a problem?
Because he's a skeptic, and Garland Nixon needs to sit down and have and this is just me spitballing here, and this is just my personal opinion. He needs to sit down with somebody like Scott Fulwiler, Matthew Forstater, or somebody who works with the Global Institute of Sustainable Prosperity, or even you for that example, to get them off of the skepticism of this, get them totally away from the skepticism and explain it to them in an MMT standpoint so they can better understand. Let's say we bought products let's say we have companies still operating in China and Russia. The corporations here in the US, their money, just like the foreign corporations that operate here in the US, the money would still have to sit at that foreign central bank to be invested in that foreign country, just like what's being done right now in China. This all comes down to foreign direct investment.
Garland Nixon had a long conversation with Steve when I was at RP. We had a bullet points and the whole works. So there was a discussion on what it was, and it isn't that he didn't understand or anything like that. You still have the tag of heterodox on your economics philosophy. Doesn't matter how well you explain something, the people around you are going to be a more of an influence. So
Yeah.
I mean that's how I view Garland. It isn't that he doesn't quite. He doesn't. It isn't that he won't understand. It's just that they. I mean, if you look at okay, say the guys that he has on his show, every single one of them talks about the deficit that's going to destroy America, right? So the
Absolutely.
debt.
The people that he normally deals with on a day-to-day basis are from zero hedge.
Yeah.
In which they're all
Now-
zero hedge people.
Now he does
Yeah,
have
like
Danny
Milton
Haifong, but
Friedman types.
he does have Danny Haifong on, but not as it. I don't think they don't talk economics as much as a lot of these other groups do, because these other groups are, all hair on fire about the end of it. I don't understand. I tried to talk to some of them. I tried to talk to Redacted, and he gets and he answers emails. We talked for a little bit, but it is a it's part of their marketing. So what we're doing is we're trying to take away a marketing tool, not showing not showing how much we can do with our economy, but taking away a large subset of their population that shows up just to be told that the deficit and the debt are killing the United States, and that we have to be fiscally sound, and that's the only way to do this is by balancing the budget. And that other countries, which is more what they're doing, is saying, oh, look at all these other countries messing it up too. Isn't this? It's just going to blow up in their face. And yet I've said to them, has it happened? I mean, and then they'll say, oh, Weimar, and then you go, well, no, that's there's a specific thing that happened there. It's pretty easy to find. Whoa, Zimbabwe. They all go through the same hyperinflation bullshit.
They go
and you can explain
like Zimbabwe, Venezuela, the Weimar Republic. Ha.
Yeah, they all go through the same crap. You listen, and then you give them point to point, and then they dismiss it. They always go, okay, yeah, all right, well, but that's not this, that, and the other thing, and it's still going to happen because they can't get over the monetary volume theory, right? That somehow money itself creates inflation. They produce enough of it, it's going to devalue the money slowly, and then all of a sudden we're going to have massive inflation. They don't like to look at resources. They don't believe that resources has as much to do with it, because the financialization of our economy is already sold to a whole bunch of people and a large group of population, and it's really hard to unsell.
So what Garland was envisioning, I think, basically, is that if these BRICS nations get real tight with one another and have a new currency, have a market basket of currencies that do not include that are absent of the dollar. Okay, the dollar is not a part, of the market basket. That somehow this means that it's going to be very expensive for us to buy their stuff, and somehow a burden on us, and somehow over a period of time, those nations that are not a part of the BRICS system are going to be drained, of money. It seems like that's the argument he was making.
Yep.
I was trying to get my head around it. It didn't really register with me.
Oh, okay. No, yes, he thought that we wouldn't. Yes, that's it. And so if we have to print more money to put more money into BRICS, that it's going to cause a higher deficit.
Not just a higher deficit, but he was worried about a higher inflation here.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Had to print
money
more
causes.
money to
Yes.
buy the foreign stuff that it was going to cause inflation here.
So you get it two ways. You get it hit in his head. He sees the deficit going up and he sees debt going up, foreign debt going up. So he thinks of it in two ways. He doesn't think of it in the fact that we can produce as much as we need to pay any bill that we need to pay, and as long as resources don't become restricted, we can do what we can do to make sure that our inflation doesn't go crazy here.
The reason why we're in this situation is because of the hegemony that has been spanning for generations now. And if we went through like just peaceful trade negotiations, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in today. But with the way our government is so corrupt to the core, and why we want to dump the corruption to get the money out of politics, is that way we can have a peaceful way of trade within the world and in the international community. That's why we have to dump the corruption to get to get past this. That's the only solution to this, is dumping the corruption.
I think the world is going to force us to at least act somewhat better. I don't think we have much choice, especially with Europe falling. I don't believe that right now the oligarchs are putting their math hats on, and they're trying to figure out the exact cap that they need to keep under in order to make it worth their while overseas, because that's how they've set up this corporatocracy, where there's an actual written out limit. So if they reach that limit, they will start to bring. They'll find alternative countries to get their production through. If they can't find alternative countries to do their production cheap enough and without too much ramp up, then they will bring up to the next cheapest country they can think of to start their production back up. And right now, it's going to be the U.S. So there's a very large likelihood, and I think I've already seen it happening. Where they're going to ramp up production in the United States again to try their best to hold.
Thank God, right?
Yeah, well, and that's just it, and so that itself is going to give labor power, and once we return to that system where we're exporting and importing and everything is more sectorally imbalanced. Where it's under our control, which it really isn't right now. An oligarchy just gave most of our production capacity overseas because it was so much cheaper, and with Mexico getting so much stronger, I mean, that they are going to be you're going to rival us in this hemisphere very quickly. That we're not going to be able to get cheap labor from them. We are going to get cheap labor from Canada. We are going to get cheap labor from the United States. So that's
and they're going to try. Something that I've watched here recently on ABS-CBN News, they'll probably explore getting cheap labor in the Philippines as well, per ABS-CBN News in the Philippines, because those workers there would work very cheaply. Like their average salary right now is $10.50 a day, which is like 560 pesos per day.
I wouldn't doubt that. The one caveat I have to that is that Indonesia controls a lot of Filipino political processes. And Indonesia is leaning heavy into China right now. So they could end up pushing Philippines into China's camp. My thought is I think they're going to try and exploit the Philippines as much as possible. But I also think that that's going to cut the country in half, because they have strong factions. After you talked about the Philippines, I did a little look, because it's an interesting country. So they are heavily conservative or heavily liberal, socialist liberal, not real left. They are real right and real left. They mimic the United States in one aspect where there's, where we have to have a heavy conservative right control over their government, but they have a very large socialist left that is growing, to the point where New Zealand and Australia have complained that they're worried about the Philippines turning into a socialist country. So that could end up moving the dial for them, especially with Indonesia falling so quickly into Chinese camp, which is really a juggernaut, by the way. Indonesia is like Mexico, it could be a superpower in the region, which China, I think, would accept, unlike the United States.
Okay, that's a very interesting reasoning and all kinds of interesting thoughts, flowing back and forth. To go back to the original issue, though, so you, from your points of view, Garland Nixon wasn't putting his finger on a real problem. In other words,
No.
he misunderstands. He misunderstands how we would pay for things in their currency. And
Yes.
he doesn't see that would not be a problem for us.
I don't know if he sees it directly, but he certainly doesn't want to broadcast that because a lot of the people who watches his show wouldn't understand, and they would actually be angry at it. That's what I was told by the good-looking guy on Redacted. He sent me that email saying that I would lose if I decided to take that economics, I would lose 20% of my viewers.
The good-looking guy on Redacted, Clayton Morris, you mean?
Clayton, yeah, that dude, yes.
Morrison.
Yeah. He was very upset that I called his wife a monetarist.
Oh, really? That's very interesting.
So we emailed back and forth a little bit. He's not upset with me anymore. He just not gonna say that out loud, even though even some of his economic friends that he has, the gold people that he has on there, agree with it.
Yeah, he has goldies on his program. Man.
Oh yeah,
gold dogs.
Yeah, they know too. It's just they're catered to an audience. Don't mess with a paycheck. Last week we talked about why you thought these people were voting for South Carolina in the primary and all that good stuff. And so I went and did a little digging, and that's the answer. One of the answers is that you don't vote against your paycheck. And that's a very seems to be a very long slogan in the South, especially, where you may not agree with them, but you're going to vote to make sure that your paycheck stays the way it is.
Yeah, and that's why many southern states do vote red.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
When I wish they would vote green, so that way they can get the most out of their paycheck.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't understand that. Yeah, but you're right.
Yeah, it's explaining that to other people in the South, the modern monetary theory.
It's very hard to explain to people still, isn't it? Even though,
oh my God, yes.
To us, it's very commonsensical.
Yeah,
but
where does the money go? That's the number one problem that I have. Where does all our tax money go then? Where does it go? And it's like, it's deleted.
Delete.
And I just don't no clue. I'll give him the Mosler bank thing where he brought his money in to pay his taxes with cash, and they took it into the back room and he watched them destroy it. So that's what happened. And it's like they just and that blows people's mind because they that is real. They don't that when you bring up the double entry accounting, that's just as long as they're an accountant, it just doesn't make any sense. Why would my taxes be satisfied through my bank? That makes no sense. I pay my taxes. I get money in my account. Sorry, it's a little. It isn't, because this is still the same question about what Garland is talking about. It's that misunderstanding of a commodified money. Money is a physical thing that's bought and sold, right? Which it's not. It's a measurement. And so when people make that leap, it's everything else just starts to fall into place. Like, okay, I'm not actually, I don't have a dollar. This isn't the thing. This means that, this is the amount that's in my account that is dictated by, all these other things and then spent into existence by the federal government to make sure that we acquisition things for the government, and then to make sure it starts to fall in line after that. But it's really really hard to get to that point.
Okay, so
and he doesn't have that point.
Summarize this and state it as clearly as I can. The trend that is already developing even before the end of the war, and that will certainly accelerate when the war ends, okay, and Russia wins the war.
Yes.
Trend towards the BRICS and towards the development of a common currency that they all use for trading is not, in your view, really going to be a problem at all for the United States.
Politically, it's a disaster.
Right. But from the economic standpoint, it's not a problem for the United States. It's not going to cause us to be any poorer.
No. No.
Not at all. I was skeptical. Like I've had, and then I listened to Randy Ray. Then I calmed down. And it took L. Randall Ray to calm me down. It took a little MMT to calm me down.
On everybody. Right?
Yeah, it took listening to one of my favorite professors to cool things down for me and then get me into a better perspective. But I don't think it's going to have any economic impact on the U.S. at all. It's just going to force us to act better in the work on the global stage. What they're pretty much doing is putting us in our place for once in the history of the world. Is all it is, foreign policy wise. Like everybody is tired of U.S. and European hegemony, and that's all they're doing. They're wanting to put us in our place for once to show us that, hey, you're not the high and mighty person you think you are, America. That's all it is.
Add to that, though, remember, we're serfs, though. So it's not U.S., it's the oligarchy and the wealthy that run this country and run Europe and have attempted, and they did attempt to take over the world for as long as they possibly could, economically speaking. They did push countries into turmoil just so that they can control them and force them into the economy when they didn't want to participate in our economy.
And look at what's going on.
And they're still doing that. I mean, it's not over. You have the BRICS, but it's still going on with many of the South American countries, still going on with many of the African countries.
Yep. It's an illegal class. It's an illegal class of people that needs to be put behind bars for the atrocities that they have committed. They are all mass murderers. I don't have any other way of putting it.
I like one of the things that Sabby brought up about Macron. One of his statements was that Europe needs to lean away from depending on the U.S. so much.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because he made fuel deals with China.
Yep. EU has actually today said the same thing. They said that we kind of like what Macron is saying. Maybe we should start backing away. I personally think that these are the aristocrats attempting to save their necks at this point, because I think we're getting to that point where we're a year or two away from this actually turning on them. The United States is going to insulate our people because we still deify people like Trump into thinking that he's anything more than just another oligarch, that's all he is. He's just a different faction of oligarchy.
Donald Trump is a product of the system that Joe Biden himself helped create.
You can track
Joe Biden is the reason why people like Donald Trump are richer and the poor are getting poorer.
Well, sure.
Totally agree. I think that's right, Greg.
One accent.
But to even simplify it further, Donald Trump is a New York shyster.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he comes from. He's a chiseler. He
And
chisels.
Donald Trump also has a trust fund.
Yeah, he had a trust fund.
He was a trust fund baby
He was.
from the
He was.
start.
He grew up in wealth. He was given the best of education, and he had all the connections required to do whatever he wanted and get out of jail free.
Yeah.
You know, and so he's a part of the same system. Someday I would love, because I have a friend that drew up this thing about oligarchies and their actual political proclivities, right? Because we always talk about Soros and the Waltons and all the big names, right? Elon Musk and all these guys, right? Well, if you look at the billionaires themselves, they're all like mini party leaders. So they all control a vast network of political agents, and those political agents all have the same type of political bent, and they hide behind their one or two or three billionaire sponsors and pretty much do whatever they're told to do. And so and one of these days he had a big thing. It was like pages and pages long that showed you that this faction of oligarchs are a group, right? And this faction are a group over here. There's the Israel PAC, IPAC. There's and these are all idealized around these sets of billionaires, and those billionaires, Elon Musk was formerly of the California, but he's kind of transferred into a no man's land and going. So there's all these different ins and outs. So to think that one oligarch it dictates one view is a way that they control and hide themselves, right? So I bring that up because the Ukraine war in itself was a billionaire run idea that was from a conglomerate of a few other billionaires who got together in their party to push this agenda, and it's been going on since the 50s. The long-term agenda.
Yes, I agree. The way I look at it is that the billionaires are the feudal lords.
Yes.
And they've got their vassals.
Yes.
And their vassals have their vassals. And those vassals have their, and so on, until finally at the bottom you get the poor serfs.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, I think our system, is really like that.
Oh, it is. I don't think it is. We don't. We have two parties. Those two parties pick who's even allowed to run in their party's primary. They don't necessarily pick somebody. I know we talk about Bernie, and I'm not going to get into a discussion one way or the other, but they do go out of the way to make sure somebody who isn't going to threaten their overall power is allowed to run in those primaries.
Yes.
And then this is pretty much everything now. It didn't used to be, but now since the House, any Fed position and up is pretty well controlled.
Yeah, I see, talking about this one specific topic, I see a lot of people now shitting, like a lot of liberals are literally shitting themselves because Robert Kennedy announced that he's running for president.
That's a negotiation. That's how I look at Robert Kennedy. FDR, when he came into power, was a negotiated leader. And that was somebody that they knew would at least keep the rich people in mind, but do the reforms that were necessary to keep power.
That wasn't enough to satisfy the oligarchs.
No.
And they tried to get rid of him, of course, as you know. They tried a coup.
Yep. Yeah. And they were successful with Kennedy. They were successful with Kennedy, though.
Yeah, but not with Roosevelt.
No, not with Roosevelt. And Truman was a patsy.
But Roosevelt didn't really punish them very much. He let them go. He didn't send anybody to jail. I mean, he could have sent people to jail. He could have executed people for that coup. But
he should have padded the court. He should have done a lot of things. But that's how I see RFK. I see RFK the junior, his entrance into this discussion as the oligarch's possible reformer. It just smells like FDR to me.
Okay.
Somebody I would like to see run for president, and this is somebody that I'm holding out for, is Ajamu Baraka.
Oh, Ajamu! Oh my God, there's no way in hell they let him get anywhere close to that. He would change our country and know how to do it. He would know the socialist reforms that were necessary in order to make us. But we would be he's a great guy. He tried.
If they still have the power,
yeah,
there's no way that he would get anywhere near it.
No, but RP did it. Talked with him too.
If we take down their power,
yeah,
by destroying, by making the big money toxic, then where do they go? I mean, where do they? How do they fight back against it? The new people coming into office don't owe them anything.
It's true.
And the new people wouldn't be able to take any of their money because then they'd be voted out of office too.
And the other point I wanted to point out earlier is also AMLO is continuing to nationalize Mexico's industries.
Yes.
Which is really ticking off the U.S.
Yes. I think that AMLO is the most revolutionary leader of Mexico since Cardenas in the 1930s.
Oh yeah, I like him. He stands up to Biden and everything. He jumped on them.
Brings him up all the time. Yeah, he brings that up all the time. By the way, brings him up all the time in speeches.
Yeah.
He brings up Lázaro Cárdenas.
Oh yes, all the time.
Oh, I love that guy.
He was. He's definitely in that fashion. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk. I am very impressed with AMLO at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, he changed his. He was one of those guys that I was trying to play the system for a lot of years. Tried his best to get through the system, and when he got voted in, I thought, well, he maybe do a little bit, but something happened, and he slowly, systematically started to take over the cartels and started to fight against the cartels, and that exposed the cartels as the actual agent, the United States agent that they were, which I think he just turned a switch and realized, oh, they aren't going to ever be nice to us, are they? So let's not be nice anymore. Venezuela's nice to us.
Yeah, and he stuck up for Venezuela when they had the North American Conference up here in the U.S. and they refused to invite Venezuela. AMLO's like, then I'm not coming.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what he did. I thought that was wonderful.
I did too.
Yeah. Now we'll see if Lula is a little bit more active. He hasn't pushed too hard for the land use acts that he really came to power to enact, and he did this last time. He got the land use faction behind him in the unions, and then kind of let him go in his first term. So I'm hoping that he doesn't, but I think he might. I think this time around he's got an ally in China that'll be able to do it. And what does this all have to do with the aftermath of Ukraine, or what does it have to do with BRICS? Well, that specifically has to do with BRICS because the wild card that I think the United States was banking on was South Africa. I think they really thought they were still going to be able to control some of the aspects, but now that one fell. Honestly, what I'm seeing here, and this is what a lot of people are not in the United States are not going to get.
Back out and pop in.
Oh, no worries. This is the triumph of socialism, and that's the problem. I think a lot of the United States and people in the United States are going to have is that they thought they won. They thought capitalism won, And what they did was they forestalled an inevitability because socialism is far more stable a system than capitalism. It doesn't exploit as much, and there's still systems of exploitation in socialism. So let's not get us that completely stirred up. There's no utopia, and I don't believe utopia is necessary. But China itself is proving that the stability that they're offering has now become so intoxicating
And so
that,
Mhm.
yeah, and
So-
so obvious. Yeah. So countries in Africa are now, and I honestly think that that's the reason why we got rid of Muammar Gaddafi, because he was enacting that and turning the African continent into one gigantic juggernaut of a world power. And he was doing it quickly.
Well,
Yeah.
and we look
He's
back
crazy, but he was.
at history and all the colonialism of Africa. I mean, my French ancestors colonized Africa, the Rousseaus. And so that's throughout history, everything that they've been through, it's been from Europeans and the United States.
That's the only hope for the United
They-
States, in my opinion.
Yeah, they've not been colonized by Africa and China. So naturally, they're going to go, or Russia and China. Naturally, they're going to lean towards the people who have been nicer to them.
yes.
Yeah,
And
I
they're
honestly,
actually offering them something.
I agree. I
So
agree.
Matt, you just mentioned that something would be the only hope for the United States.
Would be that that the only hope for the United States is that the African American and Latino populations actually are in control of the United States. I think that an extension from Mexico, that and the fact that it's going to be over 50% of our population as it is, so it's not a demographic issue. That is that white people, me included, are not going to have the say that we would normally have in a fair society, because we cannot be a part of the solution. We have to accept these solutions.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's much choice in that. And I think that's going to be the hard point, the sticking point in this country.
Well,
Sorry.
and another point as well, again, bringing up history, a good portion of the United States was owned by indigenous, which Latin Americans were indigenous. They traveled and we pushed them out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and we
Comanche
pushed them
especially.
south. So they are actually indigenous to the U.S. Land back. I'm fully support it.
Yeah, I think that's the
Yeah.
only saving grace we have in this country, is that we have to empower our African American and Latino communities to take over.
And Asian communities as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes.
They
yeah.
deserve the credit for the country that they actually physically built.
I just don't think anybody in the world is going to take us seriously while we still have even a white woman president. I don't think is enough. I
don't even think that Kamala Harris I don't think Kamala Harris being president is the solution either.
Oh,
I
no.
think if we were to have,
No, she's a neoliberal fool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if we were to
get rid of
have
that.
the very first woman president, in my opinion, I would think someone like Nina Turner.
I would
be the
think more of
best case.
Margaret Kimberly.
I don't know her per se.
Yeah.
Or there's also Cynthia
She's
McKinney.
further left. Margaret Kimberly is further left
Yes,
than Nina by far.
she is.
She's like Green Party left.
Like Cynthia McKinney.
Yeah. She's a big anti-war activist, so it's somebody that you would be able to trust to not get us into war. She's been an anti-war activist forever, probably for decades.
Well, we
Well-
could always run Rodolfo Cortez.
We have so much election
Mhm.
reform that needs to take place before we
Yeah.
can trust that anybody that's in office isn't going to be lobbied out of that. Because I am positive that even our squad had good intentions when they came into office, and they were completely. I mean, I'm not completely, but they are corrupted because
Yeah,
that's
they are
the only
corrupted.
people that are surrounded. That's the only people that surrounds them. They don't have any way of getting another voice inside of there. And as long as that continues, there's really not much a person can do in those situations. You're told that this is the only way to get to power, and if that's the only way we get to power, then you have to go through these people, and you start to trust them, and you start to believe that they're telling you the truth, and you
Mhm.
start to look at everybody else like, well, they don't understand because they're not in my position, so why would I listen to them? They don't understand, and it just
Right.
slowly
You are
pushes.
corrupted by the leadership structure.
Yeah,
Right.
and
And that's what happens. And that's why the whole Congress has to be swept out.
Oh,
Mhm.
completely. There's
Destroy the leadership structure.
did
yes,
you
and
guys see any of the Sirota interview with AOC?
No, I
No,
did
it was
I'm not
not.
watching it.
I
softball.
I
So
watched, yeah, it was softball. I watched clips of it, but I know that he did bring up to her the fact that she votes along with Biden 91% of the time.
And he probably brought up to her that also she votes with Biden nearly 100% of the time on foreign policy and
They,
on funding the war, right? He must have brought that up.
mm, yeah, but it was still very softball. It
I
was
don't. He didn't bring up stuff about foreign affairs very much.
not much, no, but there was some mention of it. But like I said, it was still extremely softball
Yeah, so
interview. Even his followers were calling him out for it.
we're sitting here on the edge of a nuclear war,
Hmm.
and he didn't bring up foreign policy to her.
Like it was slightly mentioned as far as, her voting 91% with Biden along with funding the Ukraine war.
so
You know what the
secretly,
sad part is? You know what the sad part is about the foreign policy debate? Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, when it comes to foreign policy, is a dove compared to the squad.
Yes,
Yeah, but she's still not, she's still
she's
pro war towards China and
there
pro
you go.
war towards Mexico. So
It's just
that
a
doesn't
different
make her anti
enemy.
war.
Yeah.
No,
It's
she's just a different enemy.
yeah, exactly.
And I want to say that the truth is that if any of these guys did start, voting against MIC, their districts would be impoverished. Their programs would be lowered. They wouldn't get the military contracts. We are so dependent on military spending in this country right at the moment that we have to have 1-to-1 reduction in order for us to get out of the military spending that we're using right now without it affecting the economy. I read even 7% reduction in the amount of defense spending that we have would be without a 1-to-1, without an increase someplace else would throw us into a recession, and it would be
but of
catastrophic.
course, we're talking about increases in other places.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, but
If
that's what I'm saying. That's what they're told.
You're going to have a lot of increases in other places.
But that's what they're told, right? They're told if we don't, and they think to themselves, I can't get more spending passed, so then I have to vote for this MIC stuff, or we're screwed. So that's the rock that they put them in. I'm just trying to focus that you can send Mr. Smith to Washington, but Mr. Smith has got so many constraints on him that he's not going to be able to do the right thing. Not even once. He's going to step off the plane doing the wrong thing.
And I agree with you, Matt. I think that they've gotten so surrounded. I mean, we've seen interviews where third parties have tried to approach them in an interview and somebody else will intercept and block them. when they start asking tough questions. And
Yeah.
so it's
Oh,
definitely,
we're in a period of time here where the oligarchy has control over our electoral system, and
Mhm.
I believe in helping people get elected because of the activism that it causes and creates, and the awareness that it creates in everybody. So I don't have I don't have a problem with that. But and I don't know if protesting it has to be in mass like they do in France for months and months, or we have to start spotlighting our people that are living on the street, because our working
Resetting
poor
the
is going to go
router.
through the roof right now because there's nothing available for lending is starting to get impacted. This last 2 weeks, lending has been shooting down. So
Mhm.
people aren't able to get the loans that were keeping them going for this period of time. And that's going to start to show up with more working poor on the street. The problem is that I think that the only real change, and it's only because they showed us this was real change, is Wildcat. Unions we have to set up some kind of way of making it so that these guys can win, because the government, any kind of actual, like the rail strike,
Yeah.
if we were able to support a Wildcat strike for that rail strike, we would have change toot sweet, because that's
Yep.
an essential district. That's the trucking industry, like Greg here. I mean, it could help with that. If that starts to get constrained, or the longshoremen, or anything, if we actually had some system that we were able to say, hey, we put money in, like we did with Bernie, into this gigantic account that now has $1 or $2 billion in it and growing, because we're all putting our $28 or $27 a month in, allowing these people to strike and be okay, and lose their job, because they're going to lose their job, and make
Yeah.
it so that those people who would normally have gone and decided to take that job, don't.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Talking about what you're discussing here, the truck drivers and the port workers, the truck drivers, and the railroad industry. Those are the three most vital parts
Mhm.
of the country's economy. If those three parts of if those sectors join forces together in a wildcat strike,
That's
it
where,
would put this it would not take a whole week. It would put this country on its face within 72 between 72 to 96 hours.
The
Mhm.
National Guard would be called out to replace that. What it would do is make it impossible for us to be overseas and fighting other wars. They would have to defense spending would have to be diverted into keeping up infrastructure. So that is and that would fail. So don't get me wrong, that would fail. The only group that I see willing to do it, though, are the longshoremen and out in Long Beach and New York, who talk about doing it all the time.
And Savannah,
guys,
Georgia. You got to think about
these
Savannah,
speeds,
Georgia, as well, being one of the top 5 major ports in the country.
Yeah.
The largest port on the eastern seaboard, I think, is New York, or maybe Savannah, Georgia.
you see Steve's comment?
Yeah.
And that's
Kashama.
exactly right. Kashama's plan, workers straight back. That's what we need to all be supporting, rather than donating money to politicians.
Yes, I totally agree with that. That is
Mhm.
because we can't do boycotts because that actually affects us. It doesn't affect them. All these things that we think are going to get them mad. Well, they've been set up in our head to think that way, but really they don't affect. Moving your bank account over to credit unions. Well, that's good because it funds local things, but it doesn't actually affect the system in any way, because those systems are all interconnected. So
No, but a general strike would.
but a general strike would in certain industries.
Now circle back. Okay. What happens when there's a Russian victory, which looks like it's coming up certainly in the next 2-3 months?
Mhm.
And they go to the negotiating table, and Russia gets what it's already gained and maybe some more, and Ukraine is no longer even a viable state. What will the dominoes be like that are going to fall if that happens? How soon before Europe strikes out on an independent path?
I think almost immediately, because I think we're starting to see more and more people kind of separate. Germany's going to have to.
China's
Yeah,
going to
because of what happened with the Nord
France
Stream
is
bombing.
already.
that they're not going to even start Nord Stream up. They're just going to go through Turkey. They've already set up the pipeline already. Turkey's just waiting to turn on the nozzle. They're gonna, and it'll actually be high powered and better protected. And I agree that I think the EU is going to stare at China's hands wide open with a big hug, saying, "Come on over, we need you," and they will set up a Eurasia zone that is already maybe 3/4 of the way set up already.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it, and I see England being the reason why they're fighting so much is because I see them being the odd man out.
How long do you think it's going to take for this to happen? Is it going to be 1 or 2 years?
Yeah, I would say 1 or 2 years. I'd say
I
before
would say
the
between
election.
two. If I had to say, I'd say probably 2-3 years top at the minimum.
Okay, but a very short time.
Very short time.
Yeah, it would
And
probably
even-
be done before
We're going to
2030.
start seeing it before the end of the Biden administration.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when Russia does win, and they'll slowly drag this out because they don't want a debacle to be, they want a treaty. They want to be able to walk in confidently, but have an actual treaty process that goes through and delineates those forces.
They want a new national security framework for themselves and for the Europeans that they can live with.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're going to see
then
what happen over the next 6 to 9 months.
That's what I agree with that. I would say 6 to 9 months is about right for that agreement to be set aside. And I do think that China will be the one that brokers it.
Well, I wonder with Claire Daly's statement how that's going to work out for Great Britain, for England. Because Claire Daly's even coming out saying that they need to work and separate from the U.S.
Yeah. Yes, and I think that that's going to come down to an election process in the UK because they're going to be left out.
Will England be the odd man out if the EU breaks up?
Oh yeah, no.
Of the EU breaking up into individual states again, getting their own currencies back.
China may want to keep the euro solid because that is an easy, controllable trade partner currency, but I can see countries backing out of the EU and then having it be more or less a German unified coalition, which would not include the UK. I honestly think the UK is one step away from having a major meltdown because labor is not labor. It's not a left leaning party any longer.
It's a neoliberal party now.
Yeah, it's the neoliberal party, and the neocons in England who are in UK right now are completely hell bent on war with Russia. It's almost they are psychopathic about it. I mean, they are really angry.
Might be psychopathic, but they can't have a war if most of Europe is turning towards the East for support, of various kinds. They don't have the capability to have a war with Russia.
No, so it's a good test to show what how fair elections they have in England. That's how I view it. That it could end up being a shedding moment, a revealing moment, just like Brexit was. to a large extent. That because you look into Brexit polling and you realize that yes, there was a racist undertone to some of the reasons, but there was a large economic undertone that they like to dismiss for the reasons why Brexit didn't work, and why Brexit occurred in the UK. And I think that now at this point they are just as removed from their political process. People are just as removed from their political process as we are, except that more people know it. More of their population, percentage-wise, knows it than we do.
Well, the thing is about Brexit, and this was, if Jeremy Corbyn really ran on a good Brexit plan, and this is coming from, I'm a Jeremy Corbyn supporter, but had he laid it out with MMT framework, it would have worked out much better. He could have gotten rid of Simon Wren Lewis, who at the time was his economic advisor, and hired in somebody like a Patricia Pino or a Christian Riley to help write the pro-MMT Brexit policy as well. That would have helped them out a lot more in one, had it had an MMT framework.
Yeah, they could have brought in Bill Mitchell too to help out.
I don't even know if that would have helped. He was slandered to the point of not being.
Well, have you ever watched the Labor Files?
He did not have a good economic or coherent economic stance, which I think he could have grown into. But the timing that they brought out the Jewish slam on him, it was just it was the epitome of the last, I think, epitome of the French kiss from a neoliberal media control. It was such a weak attack, yet it worked so well. It's really sad. It's one of those things. Like, if it was a week or two early or a week or two late, it wouldn't have happened, and he would have won. I really think that it's that close.
Let's stop here. Okay, what we've now hit on, the broader subject that we've now hit on, okay, is the question of the likely rapidity of changes in terms of the disintegration of the collective West that is likely to happen following the Russian victory. Okay, and let's follow this thread down next week, talking in more detail about the European disintegration and what Britain will do and what will happen in the Americas, okay, as a result, okay, of this happening. Okay.
Yeah, and we also have to take Canada into perspective as well.
Yes.
Think about that.
Yes, and consider what Canada might do.
You see, here's my problem with Canada. With all of the stuff coming down with the trans issues, a lot of the government in Canada were willing to open up asylum to trans youth in the U.S., and Biden kind of annexed or ixed that because he met with the Canadian Prime Minister, and so they're not going to open up the asylum process now to trans youth coming from the states that are trying to outlaw their care.
Yes.
Yeah, and Biden's not doing anything in terms of fighting back for the trans community at all.
No.
He is literally threw the trans community under the bus.
Yeah, he has pretty much. He's not doing anything. They brought that bill back up, but I don't think that they're going to try to pass it before the election. I think they're going to sit on it.
Just like everything else, like Roe v. Wade, all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I think too.
They're going to
Let's
sit
turn
on
to
it.
the comments now.
Okay.
I think they're
But yeah, like what Brandy was saying, they're going to sit on it just like the Democrats sat on Roe v. Wade for decades.
yes,
Mhm.
All about the Benjamins.
yeah. So would this be a united currency, kind of the euro? Steve, I think what they're considering in BRICS is having a specific currency for trade use. And then the individual currencies would have their regular currencies for domestic use. So that wouldn't be like the euro. In other words, the individual currencies or the individual nations would still be issuing their own currency for domestic purposes and would be monetarily sovereign in that context. The common currency would be restricted to trade. I have to admit, I haven't thought through the implications of such a dual system. In other words, to what extent the trade only currency, which the countries do not control, I haven't figured out yet to what extent that would undermine the sovereignty of the domestic currencies.
And that's why I say I don't think China will want this, because it messes with monetary sovereignty. Not monetary, it messes with country sovereignty. It's not just monetary sovereignty, which of course is sovereignty, period. I don't know why it really shouldn't. Monetary and country sovereignty are the same thing.
Yeah, and the Chinese government really does not want to punish the American people or any
No.
people in any country. They're wanting to do the humane and right thing. And I heard like I think I seen a video here recently where the Chinese leader Xi Jinping said he does not want to go against any person in any country at all. Like, it's just them that they're just wanting to put us in our place for once.
Yeah, they want to put us in their place and they want to do business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's 350 million people in this country. They want to get rid of our oligarchy, just like they got rid of their oligarchy, just like Russia got rid of their oligarchy. They want us to get rid of our oligarchy.
Yeah, and we should cooperate with them.
Yes,
in that
we should.
Yeah.
endeavor.
Yeah, we need a peace agreement to that's the only solution, is a peace agreement between the US, Russia, China, Britain, and any other country. And that's all they want is peace.
Nike selling all those sneakers in China as a peace agreement. That's how they view it, and so it's us that is causing this, not them. They're just waiting for us to get done with our blowhard and realize, wake up to the reality of the world, especially as Africa decides to make its ascendancy, which is going to be a rocket ship. Watch.
Okay, so Andy Candy,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
would those hemp oil refineries be owned by the federal government or privatized? Hi, got a few minutes. Kids are in the tub.
I think they have to be owned by the government. But I think I'm a hardcore socialist. I think everything should be owned by the government, and I think there should be
too.
Okay, I don't know if I'm as hardcore to socialist as that, but I agree that the hemp oil refineries should be owned by the federal government.
Yeah.
And not privatized. We don't want our energy privatized anymore.
Yeah, that's a big, huge part of our problem. And they put profits before the safety of people.
Right.
Because it's owned by corporations.
Anymore.
Like what Jill Stein said in 2016. I want a government that puts people, planet, and peace over corporate profit. And that's
Mhm.
the message that still resonates within me from her. Just by saying we do need a government that is for the people, for the planet, for peace.
Mhm.
You know, Jill Stein hit a home run, and her message should have resonated even more than Bernie's
Yeah, but she
Look,
couldn't get her message out.
she was
Yeah.
she was
because of the two
also
party system.
she was also supremely awkward. Let's get real. I liked her. I voted for her. I'm not saying that, but there was an awkwardness. There was never an ease with the public eye, and in our culture, there's no way of ascending to any kind of position of power without that charisma.
That's why
And
Ajamu Baraka needs to
oh,
run.
he has all of it. Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
But he's also militant. So you have to understand that his problem isn't that he's not right for the job. The problem is that nobody's going to trust that he's going to be tempered, and he won't, and he has no reason to be. But and not saying that Jamu would go out there and be militarized. His message. I'm just saying that the view that our country takes, because they're so racist, will it's just too hard of a sell. And we have to get to the point where we remove the accolades, the glory, all these things from behind our public positions. These are jobs, and they should be jobs that once you go up higher, they shouldn't be jobs you're looking for. They should be jobs you're given because you're good at those things. And you're the right person for the right job. And it doesn't mean that you're going to make millions of dollars, and it doesn't mean that you're going to wield wild, power, all these kind of things. It's more like you're there because you know what you have to do, and you're the best person at this job. And once we get to that point, then we can trust our public servants are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Right now, they're just
We
We
need
need
heavy
Okay,
reforms.
I think we
like
also have
what
to keep in
like
mind.
what Jesse Ventura has said in the past. We need statesmen, not career politicians.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
and
even think we
it's
need
true
statesmen.
also, but we also have to keep in mind that it's not all about the president. We're not going to
Oh,
make
it shouldn't be.
the
Mm-mm.
changes we need just by electing someone who can be a wonderful president,
Yeah.
because that wonderful president is going to have the Congress willing to work with them
Yep.
and willing to back them.
Xi himself has a panel of 12 people that he has to get approval for in order to do anything. He has a
Mhm.
triumvirate through two other people that he runs across and designs policies for. Then he sends it out to these 12 to get approved to go to the rest of the field to discuss. I just think it's 54 people at that point. It eventually gets out to well over like 4,000 or 5,000 people that have to come back with a majority and changes until that is actually enacted as policy. And there's only a certain purview he has at at his level.
So his policies receive criticism. Then.
Yes, they have to. There's actually the higher the criticism, the more likely it is that it will become law.
Okay, and he accommodates himself to the criticism and makes adjustments.
Yeah, and we're seeing him all over the place because that's his purview. His purview is Chinese relations with the world, right? That his policies, so he does not affect local politics. He doesn't affect regional politics. And long as they come up to the point when somebody has to make a decision that is going to affect the entire whole of China, and that's the part we don't get.
I understand the system, how that
Yeah.
works.
We don't have that
Cool
system.
Brand said, Greg, I think hemp oil might work for diesel fuel, but for gasoline engines, I don't know.
Yes, it would work for gasoline engines.
It would produce electricity for electric engines too. Don't even have to have a gas engine. But yeah, sorry.
I think that's a very good point. Steve says, I think you can actually run a diesel engine on vegetable oil. Andy Candy says, Greg, are you planting hemp yourself?
No. Well, it would have to come if I were elected to Congress. I mean, this is one thing that I would run on. I would, if I were just elected to Congress, I would already have a bill drawn up and introduced to the Congress to pretty much subsidize farmers to grow hemp on an industrial scale and be thinking about not the metro and urban economies. It would be more or less thinking of the rural economy. And that's what a lot of people in power seem to forget, especially the Democrats and the Republicans. Both do not view the rural community policy, which would help struggling rural economies across this country, which desperately do need the help, more so than the urban and metropolitan economies. I'm not bashing on the urban and metro communities at all. I'm just saying, as a rural voter, I have to say my community has been abandoned by these two parties for so long.
Yes.
Yes.
That we're overlooked by the two-party system. And that's where the Green Party really needs to get off their ass and start running in rural communities. And they can literally sweep elections by getting the rural votes and speaking on rural policy issues like helping the struggling rural economies. Like,
I think that's true.
Over the last decade or so, we have seen 11, if not 11 rural Georgia counties lose their hospitals, their medical care facilities.
I know.
5 rural Georgia communities do not have an ambulatory service. 3 of those counties have to depend on telemedicine. If we are going to have a healthcare system that works for everybody, that works for the many, not the few, we're going to have a healthcare system that is fully nationalized. What I mean by that is we have to nationalize the health insurance industry. We have to nationalize the pharmaceutical industry, the medical supply industry, the hospitals, every single aspect of healthcare. But the thing is about healthcare that we're going to have to do, and it's the top 2 things on the agenda when it comes to healthcare issues. We're going to have to abolish Medicare Advantage. We're going to have to ban that altogether because Medicare Advantage is a threat to Medicare for all. Number 2, we're also
privatization.
Yes.
Yeah.
Deprivatize Medicare, abolish Medicare Advantage. Number 2 on my agenda is we're going to have to abolish the Hyde Amendment. The reason why we're going to have to abolish the Hyde Amendment is because it would help get federal funding for women's reproductive rights.
Yes, I know.
And we are going to have to nationalize each abortion clinic and put those doctors on the federal payroll so states cannot interfere with federal workers.
Yes.
Because state governments...
I agree with all that. I note H.R. 1976, the current Medicare for All bill, doesn't have the Hyde Amendment in it.
It needs to. If we're going to have a successful Medicare for All proposal, it has to involve abolishing the Hyde Amendment so women's reproductive rights can be covered.
What I'm telling you is that H.R. 1976 does abolish the Hyde Amendment.
Oh, good.
is not in it. That is a very good feature of that bill. Okay, Andy Candy asks, but where do you get the starter plant? Is it available to us commoners? Okay, that's with respect to hemp, Greg.
You would probably have to go through like a local farm and feed supplier to get the hemp seeds available. But you're going to have a farmer out there who does nothing but grows a hemp crop just so you can collect the seeds off of the hemp for other farmers to plant, just like they do with any other crop across this country. You have farmers who grow crops specific for seed production purposes only.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
Yeah, that's how farming works. You have specific farmers growing things so that farmers everywhere can have the seeds. Just like here in the state of Georgia, we have, well, with peanuts, and we have Birdsong Corporation, which is based in Southwest Georgia, and Golden Peanut Company, and they handle the seed production for peanut production across Georgia. And so does other corporations as well, Monsanto being one of the bastards.
Okay, Andy Candy asks or says, Garland is ignorant as hell, Garland Nixon. He's stuck on taxes, funding, spending, stubborn about it. I unfollowed him years ago.
Yeah, I will back up Garland a little bit because he does some of the takes he has, real quick takes he has, it tend to be right, and I like that he considers himself to be more of a satirist instead of a somebody who knows everything, and so I can find him enjoyable because of that.
Yeah, I generally enjoy his shows.
Yeah,
because I enjoy the irreverence in them.
I do too.
And he makes a lot of good points about the foreign policy as well. Of course, I recognize that he has the weakness, in economics.
Sorry about that. My internet keeps glitching. Okay.
Yeah, I do like him on foreign policy.
Yeah,
I like Richard Wolff on foreign policy.
Well, yeah, that's a definite. Richard Wolff is he doesn't quite agree with MMT. He still thinks that there's a debt issue, but but he also
he's very good on foreign policy.
Yeah, well, Richard's good on unions, on union power, and he understands
good power. He's good on cooperatives, of course. He's very good on.
Very good. Employee
Jimmy
owned.
Dore has actually been interviewing Richard Wolff as of late a lot. He has been on the Jimmy Dore show a lot.
Sabby does too. Sabby does a lot too.
Sabby a lot also. And Steve Wolfbrand says, Andy, here in California, there are dispensaries everywhere where you can buy them. It's legal here. Oh, I didn't know they were selling hemp seeds at the dispensaries in California. I suppose I should check to see if they're selling them here in Virginia at the dispensaries.
Well, they probably selling cannabis seeds as well, because that's for like home growers.
Yeah, depending on what your state laws are. We can't grow at home yet. In Arkansas.
Andy says, so you
can't grow it at home, but you can. It's not illegal until you get caught.
Yeah, but I don't need any trouble. I have enough issues.
So Andy Candy says, Matt is right. Dore, Nixon, all cling to the lie for dramatics, but it hurts the listeners.
Summers does it. I mean, a great. They know MMT's description is correct. They don't deny. Krugman doesn't deny it.
Yeah,
That's not the.
Struggles.
I can't stand Summers. I don't
Oh,
think
I
You know
can't
who?
see.
You know what? You know what's hilarious is
it's
when
Mr. Evil.
you know who
He's
my
evil.
favorite person. You know who you know who I really love to see troll Paul Krugman more than anybody in the world. Ellis Winningham.
So,
I don't know. You should read some of my early blogs criticizing Paul Krugman. Okay, if you want to
so,
see
Boy, Pringles.
some trolling.
so Summers, along with Krugman, believe that the aristocrat, the oligarchy, should be in charge, and that's why they take the positions that they take. Period.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I like the way Ellis Winningham will go on Twitter and troll Paul Krugman. It's
I love
hilarious
Ellis too.
watching.
Ellis's best thing though ever is explaining the monetary unit of account. He does that better than any other MMT proponent I've ever heard, and he can make a lot of sense to a lot of people. And I got to dig that out and maybe republish it somewhere, because that is the perfect MMT starter. We have other MT starters that kind of, they do a good job, but this one actually explains everything from a accounting point of view, a unit of account, and how stupid it is to think of all these other ways of that he doesn't really even like the taxes to funding spending thing. He doesn't, that he wants to teach everybody that the unit of account is a measurement, monetary measurement. He was the first one that I really got through to my head, saying, okay, now I get it. Stop calling it a commodity. This is just a measurement.
You remember that one time you remember that one time Ellis kind of said it's like, he kind of compared it to like piss in a cup or something. You remember that one?
I wouldn't. Maybe. Yeah. He said a lot of stuff that was. He would every now and then get pretty into it, and then he'd back off, and because there were certain things that he didn't
I
like.
miss Ellis.
Yeah, I do too. But I think he's a happier person now.
I'm gonna have to have Ellis on the show here eventually.
The problem is if he'll come.
Yeah, that's going to say, if you can get him, you've got yourself a tiger by the tail there, because he is extremely entertaining.
Yes, he is absolutely entertaining, but I kind of think he gave up the public stuff some time ago.
Yeah, I
and
understand.
I think he wants peace in his life, and that was interfering with his sense of peace.
Yep.
So there are some comments, or some more comments from Steve and Andy Candy. Steve says, Andy, not sure about industrial seeds. They're more about high THC seeds. Andy Candy says, Tim Black doesn't accept MMT truth either. They hold on to misinformation for dramatics / theater. Andy Candy says, Philippines are far away. Lana Dell says, we already get cheap labor from the Philippines. Even my skin doctor has Zoom workers from Philippines. Andy Candy says, I wonder if the oligarchs will try.
That's where my girlfriend is from, by the way.
Oh, I know.
I'm dating a Filipino.
You're always on the phone to the Philippines.
Yeah.
I wonder if the oligarchs will try to use U.S. prison labor if things get tough under BRICS.
Most likely.
I don't know. The U.S. seems willing to do anything these days.
Except exchange a peace plan.
They want slaves. Yeah, except to do a peace plan. So Lana says, Matt, that's as lame as Congress who refuses to tell the truth.
It is.
Fail. Steve says, hi, Lana, Andy Candy. Says, see ya. Lana says, how are you, Steve? Steve says, bye, Andy. Andy says, kids got the whole bathroom flooded.
Oh, Lord.
And Lana says, I can't see Andy. Andy says, see you, Steve, again. Steve says, I'm good, Lana. Lana says, I like my Bible reference. They giveth, spending, they taketh away, taxes. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, return from whence it came. That's true, Lana.
There you go.
That's a good analogy.
Hmm.
Lana says, Steve, are you going to join us for end of July Medicare for All events? Lana says, Randy Ray is very calm. Lana says,
Oh man, Randy Ray is like as calm as a panda.
and Lana Dell says, so is Bill Mitchell. I think in both cases there's real fire under the surface. A lot of fire burning there. Steve Wolfman.
Passion. It's passion, pure passion behind those two.
Fire.
And the way they explain things, like they go into like passionate explanation, especially whenever I was watching them live during the MMT conferences. They were going about it very calmly, very passionately, in a way that even somebody that doesn't get it really could understand.
Have you seen the stuff from the 2010 MMT Fiscal Sustainability Conference?
No, I haven't.
They're up on the web, okay, on YouTube. Anyway, if you get a chance to look at it, I think you'll see a lot of good things there. Okay, that's a conference that was put together in 3 weeks' time by myself and a small team, okay, of people. It was on April 28th, 2010.
Yeah, I'll admit, whenever I started first, when I heard the term taxes don't fund federal spending, I thought y'all lost your damn minds.
Yeah. Lana says, so is Bill Mitchell. And Lana says, if there's an action in Los Angeles, I will. There probably will be an action, okay, in Los Angeles. Isn't there an action every year for Medicare for All in Los Angeles, Steve? Lana says, I will try to talk to Tsukuru. I can't believe Tsukuru is not going to have an action in Los Angeles on July 30th or thereabouts. Lana says, I agree, Brandy. Steve Wolfbrand says, where's Tsukuru located? LA. I think Los Angeles area, right? Yeah, Los Angeles. Oh, there's Sherry. Lana says, I think so. Yeah, there's Sherry, who says the oligarchs are surrounded by courtiers, and the institutionalized versions of the courtiers are the think tanks. You got it, Sherry. That's the feudal system.
Yep. Rand Corporation, the Rand Corporation, and Pete Peterson, and I mean, it really matters on what their focus is. If its focus is on MIC, they look at the Rand Corp, and if it's on, something else, Heritage Foundation, those are all the courtiers.
Cato Institute.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's a direct translation, and I completely agree with her.
Steve Wolfbrand said, I would have to dust off my red beret, laugh out loud. I thought you had more than one red beret, Steve.
I still want me a red beret.
I've got to make you one.
Yes, you do.
I'm going to have to sew you one as soon as I get to where I can do it. But I've got my friend red beret.
Hey, there's the red beret now.
Yeah,
I
one
could get in touch with Laura Fielding about getting one.
Wearing ours and all the attention we get.
But I would like to have my red beret with the Soviet symbol on it. That would be even cooler.
I can do that.
Hell yeah. Brandy could tell you I've become quite the tanky.
I've made shirts with, in fact, the shirts that I had made for Unholy over a year ago, whenever he was doing his first tour for the poor in New York. I did some and put a Care Bear with the Soviet symbol on them.
Oh, I've got the meme. It was like one of the it was like a Care Bear. It was like the trans pride color Care Bear that had like the Soviet symbol on it. And you and I, you sent me one, and then I sent you another, and we was like sitting all night sending each
Well, I
other that
had
shit.
the anarchist Care Bear, the Wiccan Care Bear, the commie Care Bear, and several of them. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm quite the tanky.
So Jeff Denton says Trump is the mutant offspring of the dynastic families that have been creating empires and looting the world of resources for generations. And so is Bill Gates.
Different faction, but yes,
It's a
different
big club,
lineage.
and you
But
ain't
yes,
in it.
Trump directly comes from the Bushy and the Prescott lineage, but Gates comes from a different, just as rich, more of the Rockefeller side. I can't make this
Was
stuff up.
Gates' father very rich? I thought his father was an MD, a doctor,
Yeah, I mean, gave him a couple $100,000. Yeah.
to start off with.
Well, and more importantly, the right schools. That's what people don't quite understand. They talk about, starting out from Northern. I only had $1 million, but you went to Yale, and you went to the right university with the right people at the right time, and all this kind of different things. And that's the things that they don't talk about. And every school in every region has 3 or 4 of these elite prep schools and elite colleges that they, network.
You see, I've got a cousin whose son went to an elite college, got a full ride scholarship, and they were not rich at all. But most of them who are.
Yeah.
Obama wasn't rich at all, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but in Gates's case, he never finished college. He quit after a year or two because he could write assembly language. And it was a big deal to write assembly language in those days. And that's how he started out making his money. Anyway, Lana Dell says, yes, Sukuru is in LA. Next item on list, April 15th, Save the Bay. Lana says, Truman certainly was a patsy or a puppet.
Every now and then he would say something that he'd go, did you really just say that? And then the next thing he'd say something completely opposite. Because he had a hard time keeping his mouth shut after his presidency, for sure.
Yes, that was certainly true. Steve over friends, Sabby had a great show on RFK Jr. just before this show came on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I missed the RFK Jr. part of it. I'm going to go back and watch it, Steve.
They say he's a terrible, anti-vaxxer and all that.
Stuff doesn't matter to oligarchs.
Okay, I've heard him talk about that a little. He says he's not really an anti-vaxxer, and he goes into some detail. He questions.
He's a skeptic.
He questions for safety.
Yes.
And that is very important.
And that is also different from an anti-vaxxer. Steve Wolfman says, I used to watch Sukuru's show on Facebook, but my account got hacked and I haven't opened a new account yet.
Yeah, Steve, get back on Facebook.
Cuba sends out armies of doctors to help other countries. I know they do. And they have like a whole coalition of medical staff and all that. Like even the Philippines will send out like medical stuff as well. And so Lana asks, Steve, is there another way to get in touch with you? Twitter? Steve says,
yeah.
Twitter, you want my email?
Yeah, I'm very obsessed with the Philippines, but with good reason.
Sherry says, love these discussions with Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sherry. We all love these discussions with Matt.
Appreciate it.
And
Matt's awesome.
And we would love these discussions with you, too, if you would join us next Tuesday
Yeah, that's if I can remember that. That's if I'm not on the phone with my significant other.
Yes, I know that about you, Greg, but I was actually directly addressing Sherry and
Yeah,
inviting
come on,
her.
Sherry, get on.
Yeah, we have the link in the Around the World with Brandy and D chat that we added you to last week. So if you come to that chat, you can find the StreamYard link and you can join us. Lana says, if you feel comfortable sharing here, sure. Steve says, my messenger got hacked as well. Kamala Ugg, says Lana. Steve says, I only trust Kashama and Tulsi and Cynthia McKinney. Lana
I
says,
think Kashama Sawant would make a good president.
I don't know about that, but I think. Oh, you said Kashama Sawant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she'd make a good president too. Lana says, no Tulsi puke. The other two are good. So Lana says, we're talking about increasing in other places, but too many just want to cut the spending for the sake of such. Too many still believe the myth of government spending automatically equals inflation. Steve Wolfbrand says, well, we all saw what they did to Bernie. Lana says, yes, Bernie. Steve Wolfbrand says, Kashama, workers strike back.
I think if Kashama Sawant ran for president, she should run solely as an independent, free of the two-party system. That way she does not have to go through a rigged primary process at all. Because we know the Democrats have historically rigged their primaries. Look at what they did in 2004 with Dennis Kucinich, 2008 with Mike Gravel, 16 and 20 with Bernie.
Does anybody know whether Kashama was born in this country or not?
I think
I
she
don't
was.
believe she was, so I don't think she can run for president.
Yeah, but I think Ro Khanna can run for president, right?
If he's,
I somehow have the impression that he was born here.
yeah, because people have talked about him wanting to run, that they think that he's going to eventually throw his hat in the ring. But I don't think Kashama can. I think her parents were immigrants. I don't think she was born here, but I may be wrong on that. But I absolutely love her to death.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, we need her in Congress.
Well, right now she's focusing on building up the workers' movements from the ground level rather than the electoral politics, so that we've got that to fall back on for a general strike.
Yeah, that's a crucial. That's going to be very crucial.
Mm-hmm.
We need that framework because that's like super crucial. Because without that framework, we're screwed.
We are.
That framework could also come in handy for future elections as well. Like along the lines of organizing and all that.
Okay.
But somebody I really think would make a good president would be Ajamu Baraka. I'm really sold on him. He's a solid guy. That's who I'm hoping could run in 24.
Okay, I don't know who I think could run in 24.
I don't think Ajamu's too happy with the Green Party right at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, because of Howie Hawkins.
Yeah.
And how Howie Hawkins is all about Ukraine this, Ukraine that.
I know. And Lana says, we are talking about increasing in other places, but too many. Oh, I guess I've read that already. And Steve Wolfman says, well, we all saw what they did to Bernie. Yes, Bernie. Kashama, workers strike back. Steve Wolfbrand, that's why the government shut down the railroad strikes. Steve, did you send the email address? Andy says, still mopping. McKinney is corrupt too. Lana says, yeah. Steve says, yes, look above. Lana says, I can't see it. You might have to break it up. Yes, I couldn't see it either, Steve. Okay, I couldn't see.
Who's corrupt? McKinney's corrupt.
According to Andy Candy, yeah, McKinney's corrupt.
Yeah.
Okay, Evelina Pontus here. Hi, Evelina. I haven't seen you for a while. Jeremy Corbyn may be running as an independent. Yes, that's
He
what
is. He's gonna stand in Islington North as an independent.
Yeah. Many believe he would win if he decided to run. I think he has decided.
Oh, he has decided to stand as an independent, and he's got a broad coalition of people coming to Islington specifically to help on his campaign. I know organizers right now that just started renting a home there in Islington North so they can go ahead, get the ground game going and mobilize to keep Jeremy Corbyn in power. And there, and right now, the trade unionists currently have 270 or more candidates that are going to be running in local by-elections in many key areas to knock out Keir Starmer rights and get elected as trade unionist and all that.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, and this is going to be in local by-elections that's coming up in May. There's 270 or more candidates right now who have announced, thrown their hats in the ring across the country.
That's great.
I hate to do this to you guys. I got a hard out at 8 o'clock, but I'll talk to you guys next week, and I appreciate the time.
Okay.
See you later, guys.
Matt, it was wonderful to have you.
Later, Tater.
Take care, guys.
Yeah, good night.
But yeah, as I was saying, there are currently 270, if not more, candidates from the trade unionist sector who have said, well, they have expressed that they will be running for local by-elections coming in May. And that's really, and they are specifically targeting pro-Starmer labor counselors in the local level governments. And if they can knock the stilts in these Starmer areas right out from under these Starmerites, then it's going to strengthen their resolve going into a future general election. Because right now, Starmer's approval rating is tanking since he kicked Corbyn out of Labor.
Oh, I know.
And that's also in accordance to what Laura Pidcock says, who says she will be standing in her constituency in 24 as an independent, and she will be getting her seat back. There's also mobilization there from pro-Corbyn allies going to her constituency as well to run to help get her reelected. That she lost her seat, and she originally got elected in 2017, lost in 2019 because of the lies being told by pro-Corbyn, toward pro-Corbyn allies in Labor.
So Lana says, I didn't realize Simon Wren Lewis was advising him, but
yes,
Brad is right that the anti-Semitism attack was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, but Jeremy Corbyn is planning on coming back with a vengeance, and so are pro-Corbyn allies. And I'm also advising, giving my advice from an American strategic standpoint. I've worked within my state Democratic Party in 2020 elections, and I'm telling them what they need to do, and they need to specifically target the youth voting bloc, and that's what they need to go after. and keep a hold to their promises, unlike what the Democrats have done under Joe Biden.
Yes.
I'm in a trade unionist group right now on Facebook.
Yeah, that sounds like real good stuff going on in the UK right now.
Oh, yeah, some very, very good stuff.
Okay, Lana suggests after having a good deal of trouble and getting the email addresses down here, she says, maybe we should try Morse code, IRO. Steve says,
Steve,
Lana,
we need to get Steve into a Slack. We need to build a centralized Slack.
Yeah, we don't have a Slack for us here yet. Lana
Yeah,
says,
we need to get that.
I was almost a spy. Didn't go because I was pregnant. True story. Lana says, private insurance companies should be banned from parading around under false Medicare name. They should. And Lana says, what about Jay Powell's bill to read the Hyde Amendment again? There's no Hyde Amendment in there. Steve Wolfbrand said, I don't think the hemp seeds would be hard to find. Steve says, Garland's heart is in the right place. I certainly think so myself. And Lana says, Professor Wolf is great, but I have learned to take the good and leave the rest. He has a lot of knowledge about European history. He does.
And he's very knowledgeable when it comes to foreign policy. Like, I like his stances on foreign policy. It's just economic policy I strongly disagree with him on.
Yeah, I have the same feelings.
It's economic policy I disagree with him on, but when it comes to some like union policy and foreign policy, I will agree with him on 100%.
I'm going to have to head out as well.
Okay, thank you,
Same
Brandy.
here. I'm getting sleepy over here.
And thank you for the discussion. It was very
You're
good.
welcome. Have a good night.
Y'all
Let's
take
see.
care and have a good night as well. I'm about to head out because my head's about to want to hit the pillow behind me.
Okay. Well, thank you too, Greg. That was
Y'all have a great night.
fine discussion. Okay, good night. Okay, Steve Wolfbrand says laws are only suggestions, Jeffrey. Lana Dell says Larry the loser. That was Larry Summers. Who was the guy from UK the other day telling Mosler that's not how the world works. Taxes create unemployment. Oh, I don't know. I forget who was trying to tell Mosler that. Lana says, I miss our MMT conferences. Is there going to be one this coming September? I thought maybe they were going to have one in D.C. Lana says, that wasn't supposed to be a question. Lana says, Laura or Fran Bauer? Scott makes the lockets. Right, okay. Or Michelle. She makes the red berets too. And Steve Wilford says, Fran Bauer made my red beret, one for me and two for some friends. Fran Bauer makes great red berets. The one I have on is from Laura, but I have a couple from Fran Bauer also, and they're beautiful. And Lana says, rich people's connections are a big stepping stone. Another reason they all join the country club too. And rich people, and Steve says, Joe, yes, watch RFK Jr.'s foreign policy segment on Sabby Show. It's good. Thank you, Steve. I really will. I'm interested in what RFK has to say on that. I've been watching Marianne Williamson too. I had a long conversation on Twitter with Pepper Lewis, actually Pepper Oceana, is what she calls herself on Twitter. We had a very extensive exchange about the Marianne Williamson candidacy and some of her opinions, and you might want to take a look at it. Okay, it was lengthy, It was friendly. It was very rational. It was informative. Pepper's a great person. Kashama is not eligible for POTUS, unfortunately, not native born. Yeah. And since I just looked, Kashama was born in India. Ro was born in Philadelphia per wiki. Lana says Howie is a little strange. Steve Wolfbrand says Howie has zero charisma, absolute zero. Okay, actually, I kind of like Howie, in spite of everything. But he is wrong on Ukraine. Yeah, he is so wrong on Ukraine. Lana says good night. Steve Wolfbrand says good night, Lana. Evelina says excellent, Greg. Brandy says, I'm honestly not worried about who is or is not running here because we need to focus on building the ground game at the local level up through third party. We need to focus on getting the damn money out of politics and dump the corruption. Yeah, we do need to focus on the ground game too, though, right? And I agree with that. Yes, Michelle de Villiers, exactly. She makes some really beautiful berets. Honey, can you hand me the berets in back of us? I'm going to show a Michelle beret right now. See this? Okay, isn't this beautiful? I guess I'm not showing it very well.
Put it on.
Okay, I'll put it on. That'll work better.
There you go.
This is one beautiful beret. Okay, I have seen Laura wearing something like this. Okay, as well. Okay, let me see how that shows up. Pretty well, I guess. It's crocheting, beautiful, beautiful crocheting. And Michelle is a real artist. And okay, here's a Fran Bauer one. When I wear this outside, usually, okay, I get a lot of comments on this one.
Yeah.
And it gives us a chance to talk about Medicare for all to people as well. So there we are. So Evelina says at this point, wonder why they didn't come across my feed. You and Pepper? Yeah. Right, it was Pepper and I. Very lengthy conversation. I was saying goodnight to Matt, but thanks, Steve, says Lana. And Evelina says, at this point, Lana says, dumping the corruption includes voting in the primary. No one wants to acknowledge that, unfortunately. Yeah, it includes voting in the primary. The primary is extremely important to defeat people in the primary who are taking the big money. That is the most important thing because they never get to the general then. Lana says, all the red berets are different, each one made with love.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Steve Wolfbrand said, Fran Bauer is a good German name. Well, yes, it is. I always wonder if she's any relation to Hank Bauer, the old Yankee. Lana says, Fran is a dance enthusiast and instructor, I believe. Yes, she is. She is also formerly an RN as well. I think that does it for tonight. Thank you all. I think we had a great session here tonight. I very much enjoyed it. Thank you, Dee,
Thank you for having me.
for hanging in there the whole way. Okay, it's really great that you hung in the whole way. So thank you, and we'll be seeing each other tomorrow. I'm sure you'll have a show tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Time.
And I will be there at 9 p.m. with another Dump the Corruption show, seeing how 5 more Democratic candidates fare against the litmus test.
Is it going to be another one, Ice the Dust type of show?
I'm sure it's going to be another one like the Dust Show. Is it? The taking this big money is so ingrained. It's so ingrained in the system. They just don't do anything else. Anyway, that's the way that is. So Lana says, well, nice talking to you all. Good night. It's nice talking to you, Lana, too. Steve Wolfbrand says, good night, all. Good night, Steve.
Yes, good night.
Thank you for hanging in from the get-go also. That was very much appreciated. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, someday you ought to come on here as a guest, Steve.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be fantastic.
That would be really wonderful. Yeah. Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.
And good night.